nowadays, a lot of people face problem with
envisions to provide the student community of NITIE a platform to gain knowledge and industrial exposure on the current trends of IT and analytics. So, NITIE Analytics Conclave is one of our flagship events where analytics stalwarts from the industry join us and share their experiences to the students. And we are really blessed to have you here and looking to get as much knowledge and insights from you all from diverse domains of the industry. Talking about data analytics, like India is at the cusp of digital revolution, and it has become a necessity for the companies to transform themselves digitally in order to stay competitive. This has resulted in a large-scale digital transformation, and it's more of a survival necessity than just a fancy feature for any company in these days. So, with data being the new-found oil of the 21st century, companies from all the domains are leveraging it to improve their processes, reduce cost, increase customer satisfaction, and whatnot. So yeah, like as we all understand, like data analytics are transforming every shape of every sphere of our life. I would now like to invite Professor Hema Date ma'am, Dean Student Affairs, to give a welcome address to all our dignitaries. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Good morning, respected Director Sir, faculty colleagues, registrar, officers, NITIE family, and my dear students. It's my honor and privilege to welcome all the guests to NITIE for the first Analytics Conclave of Avartan. We are grateful to you for taking time off from your busy schedule to attend this event. NITIE was established in year 1963, specifically with an eye on Udyog Pragati or industrial progress. In the year 2013, NITIE completed its Golden Jubilee, a glorious 50 years that have seen NITIE evolve continuously to cater to the ever-changing needs of the industry. Having started off as a training institute to satisfy the demand of the skilled workers in the industry, NITIE has transformed into a management institute, seeing that techno managers are what the industry so desperately needs these days. And it isn't just its highly competent and motivated managers that NITIE is known for. NITIE has a reputation for being a leader in industrial engineering and management research throughout the country. In due course of time, it has diversified itself to incorporate other facets of management. NITIE has always modified its curriculum as per industry needs, and we have taken many initiatives to create a learning culture among the students. But we all know that the rapid changes we see in the industry, either in the field of analytics or technology, often make our years learning obsolete. Hence, we need to update ourselves with the latest industry trends. And I'm sure today's session is a unique opportunity for the students to interact and learn from the best minds of the industry who are leading teams across diverse domains in the analytics sector. I would also thank the students community for organizing such a wonderful event this year despite so many constraints. Now I'll hand over the session to the students coordinator for further processing. Thank you so much. Thanks all.
Shyam, you are on mute.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Hima ma'am, for the speech. And now I'd like to invite Professor Devrata Das to talk about some of the NITIE initiatives in the field of data and analytics.
Yeah, good morning to all of you. Good morning to all the panelists. It's my pleasure to be here. And I would like to talk a little bit about, like Professor Hemadatta ma'am already talked, that how NITIE is progressing as far as analytics and IT profile is concerned. So I'll talk a bit more on it, like over the past couple of years, how NITIE has taken various initiatives to make our students industry ready for the IT and analytics profile. Okay. So I'll talk mainly for the three points, like one, as far as code, another one, how we have done good in along the industry academia front. So that means the consultancy. And we'll also talk about various seminars and webinars done by NITIE in the past couple of years. The focus is how we can make our students ready for the IT and analytics profile. So we at NITIE understand the need for technical skill along with the managerial skill and have always strived to impart these skills to our students. So we provide a range of elective and micro-credit courses in the IT and analytics domain for students to further develop these skills to solve real-life challenges. Like these courses, if I just talk about few of them, ranges from data analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, advanced optimization technique, blockchain, supply chain analytics, among others. And this year, in the first year itself, we have introduced Python to the first year students. So what we thought that although they learn the technique, but sometimes they miss the coding part. So we want them to have a deep knowledge in coding also. So from the first year itself, they start coding in Python so that they become very comfortable when they go in the industry. Then as far as faculty members are concerned, so they are actively involved in doing research and consultancy in the domain of analytics. For example, me and my team are currently involved in providing end-to-end analytics solution to an Indian airlines. Okay. We are helping them for crew scheduling, aircraft routing, maintenance, manpower optimization, from starting to end. Like all analytics related activities have been done by NITIE faculty, and it's still an ongoing process. So there are some other projects going on like forecasting. Then we are also applying various AI/ML tool in operation and supply chain management for other companies as well. And as far as webinars are concerned, so because of pandemic, of course, we are not able to call the guest faculty and industry experts in beautiful campus of NITIE, but we are still trying to get a chance to listen to them through webinars. Like for example, Professor Simchi Levy, you must be knowing him. He's from MIT. He presented a webinar on supply chain resilience. And we're also trying to conduct courses by him, which will be open to all our NITIE students. And of course, we'll try to open it for the other alumni as well as the other industry experts who would like to join this. So this will be course on supply chain resilience. It will be floated mainly in November or December time. So Professor Simchi Levy and our director sir will conduct these courses. So in that courses also, our focus will be how analytics tool can be used to take various decisions in supply chain related activities, and specifically resilience, uncertainty, disruptions, how we can tackle that. Then we also had conducted a seminar on blockchain. We thought that our students are not having enough exposure. So Professor R.K. Samsundar, he is a well-known personality and is a very distinguished professor at IIT Bombay. He is J.C. Bose National Fellow and distinguished professor. He has also taught in TIFR Mumbai. Now he has been doing research in blockchain technology for a long period of time. So we thought that why not to invite him. So he has presented a webinar, and now we are converting that to a microcredit course. So our students will get a chance to teach, to understand blockchain from him. I also have conducted a webinar on digital twin by eminent faculty from Warwick Manufacturing Group. So Warwick Manufacturing Group, they have done a lot of digital twin for like other industry as well. So we had our student got a chance to listen to them and see how digital twin can be replicated in other Indian industries as well. So now, as far as publications are concerned, so our faculty members as well as the students who are working closely with the faculty, they're also publishing a lot, specifically in the domain of IT and analytics. So we have publication in blockchain, we have publication in Industry 4.0, and how these tools and techniques can be applied in agriculture supply chain, in the in automobile industry, and in the other industries as well. Okay, so these are mainly three fronts. Now, if I think Professor Hema Datte also maybe talk about the placement. So I just got this figure from our students that our placements too have been ever growing, with 14% students I think got placed in the IT and analytics domain in final placement of 2020. Okay, so as one of the panelist members are interested, so this is the data from the last year. So this year, I am sure that this 14% will definitely go up. These includes like various prominent recruiters like General Electric, Capgemini, IBM, Wipro, and many more. So with all these achievements, we continue to create techno managers to help business be ready for the future. Okay. So this is a brief about various front, like how NITIE has been actively involved to make our students industry ready, specifically in the domain of IT and analytics. So of course, the other domain, we are also doing great, but this is conclave for IT analytics. So my focus was specifically on this. So we aim to be the one-stop destination for the best managers with all the technical skills. And we are sure that our students would only contribute to make us proud. Okay. So with this, I would like to thank all the panelists today for their insights and keen interest in the event. I hope that in the future, we take this association to a newer heights in forms of guest lectures, workshop, and recruitment. So through this platform, I would also like to invite all the panelists. So please come whenever the pandemic ends and visit us, this beautiful campus. And I am sure that if you are not able to come, then please let me know, or Professor Hema Datte Madam know. So we will conduct a webinar or seminar by you, so that our students can learn the various nitty-gritty, like how actually in industry analytics are being used. So I'm sure that you are the person who can guide our students. So look forward to see you in the campus soon. And if not, then virtually through webinars. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sam, and thank you the students.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks for those nice words. And surely NITIE has been taking a lot of steps to equip students in the field of data and analytics. So let's not wait further. Let's dive deep into the session and hear it out from our panelists. We'll be beginning with Sir Jaidev Datta, Director, Strategy and Analytics Consulting and Intelligent Automation. Mr. Jaidev is Director with Strategy and Analytics Consulting in Deloitte. As a data and analytics practitioner, he has executed multiple large-scale transformation programs with focus on enterprise data strategy, business IT alignment, business value assessment, roadmaps, data integration, analytics, and big data, and data lake strategy and implementation. He has a strong track record of incubating new offerings and building high-performing teams. During his stint with Deloitte, he has incubated. He incubated and now leads the intelligent automation competency. So there was a lot of things we can learn from Jaidev sir. So yeah, over to you, Jaidev sir. Now, yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you, Shyam. I hope I'm audible. And
yes, sir.
Let me just quickly share my screen, and then you can let me know if the. So is my presentable visible to all?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Awesome. So thank you for the kind words, and thank you, Professor Datte and Professor Das. For one, I have always been very excited to interact with the college students and the academia wherever possible, because even though it's been 18 years I have been in the industry, but still find it very refreshing to talk to the brighter minds who are going to shape the future, right? So today, actually, as analytics professionals, we all and thought leaders, for the final frontier for all of us in analytics is AI, right? And today I wanted to talk about a slightly different aspects of AI, obviously about the impact, the potential, but more importantly, the importance of human-centered AI and on what it is and why it is important, in the long run, or when we see the bigger picture about AI. So AI has been here for a long time, but AI has transformed the industry, transformed our lives in a way that that very few things have done before. And you can see the quote by the Baidu chief scientist, right? So he's comparing it to electricity, right? So AI right now today is helping us solve very diverse problems, from quotidian problems like setting up baseball teams or credit underwriting, to strategic problems like predicting the outcome of a business initiative, to more existential problems like security and terrorism threats, right? So AI is everywhere. It's very pervasive, or it's all pervasive now. However, when we look at AI, there is also a myth that is kind of equally strong, and the myth is that AI will soon outrun and outpace human beings, right? So that is a myth. Again, when we see these, it's the way that some of the parts of the industry have projected AI, like the supercomputers, where the IBM computers beat other contestants at Jeopardy, or when we see movies like Ex Machina. So there is a sense that that in near future, or in our lifetimes, there will come a time where AI will soon outpace human beings, and then it will also lead to a lot of job loss and all of that, right? So why this is a myth? This myth is because we tend to compare AI on a linear scale. So like a scale of 1 to 10, where probably animals are at the lower end, humans are at the higher end, and we think of AI as the god, as that at the highest end, right? So the scale itself is a myth, because AI is not unidimensional. It has multiple dimensions to it, right? So starting with, there are some dimensions where definitely computers are outpacing us, like speed and capability to recall. But there are other dimensions like creativity and empathy, where probably they are nowhere near to us, and they will not be as well, right? Just take an example like of deep learning, right? So today, deep learning algorithms are predicting various diseases, starting from lung cancer to other forms of cancer. So we see Watson predicting higher cancer with higher accuracy than oncologists, right? So there is a very, very powerful impact of AI. But at the same time, it is very easy to have a dumb AI as well, right? So if you see this example, right, it is able to classify a particular object as a banana. But the moment we place something aside it is very easy to fool the algorithm, and the algorithm now predicts that it is a toaster, whereas the object is still the same, right? So what essentially I'm trying to say here is that AI is powerful, but at the same time, if not trained, or if not developed in the right manner, it can be equally dumb and shallow as well, right? A few other examples of artificial stupidity, as we like to call it in the AI space, is like Amazon has a great recruiting algorithm till the time, and that they used to score all the profiles that they used to get for recruiting. And there was a time when they realized that this algorithm has a bias against women. So the algorithms would rate the women candidates, or give the women candidates a lower scale compared to their equally qualified or equally expert male candidates, right? And then they decided to scrap that algorithm. But in my opinion, actually, they should have looked into the fact that why the algorithm developed a bias. And it's not that the algorithm had a bias, the historical data that the algorithm was trained on showed that bias. The algorithm only exposed that bias. So the bias was actually there in the manual process of recruiting, right? When the recruiters used to shortlist profiles, and they used to give male candidates more preference over female candidates. And the algorithm was simply trained on that data, right? So it did not do anything wrong. It just exposed the bias, right? Another example is of Tesla, right? So there was a Tesla, again, their autopilot cars or their self-driving cars are fantastic. And at the same time, there have been a couple of incidents as well. So there's one, and there has been, if I am not wrong, just one fatal incident, which happened in California. And there was a lot of debate around, whether we should abort self-driving cars if they're not ready yet for the public. And when Tesla did the background analysis, they found out that the self-driving pilot or autopilot had given us a couple of warnings to the driver, right? That who were not paying attention, who was not paying attention to the road, right? It had even prompted the driver to apply brakes, but the driver did not, right? And in that case, it resulted in an accident, right? So these are some examples through which I'm trying to illustrate that how AI, even though it is as powerful as we want it to be or claim it to be, it also has its own limitations. It is also dumb in a certain manner, and therefore it's important for us to balance it, right? So now, how do we make AI more intelligent, right? So the basic principle is that these technologies are not very likely to generate smart outcomes unless they are designed to promote smart adoption. And what does this mean? This means that we need to have human-centered design for effective and ethical AI. Right? And this is a very, very key principle that we are starting to evaluate our AI algorithms or AI applications on, right? Whether it is effective and whether it is ethical. And to be effective and ethical, it needs a human-centered design. Don Norman, we all know he was the chief designer in Apple. He is one of the leading thought leaders of design thinking, and he has put it in a very nice way. So what he says is the problem with most engineers, and I am talking to a group of engineers here or a full batch of engineers, and I am also one. So the problem with most of us is we are too logical. And when we design a certain application or certain AI algorithm, we try to mold the human behavior in the way we wish it to be. We don't accept it the way it is, and that is the cause of these kind of not having a human-centered design in our AI applications. Right? I'll maybe take a few examples around that. So there are two devices or two things that we commonly use. One is smartphones, right? So smartphones are really complex, but do we need a instruction manual to use smartphones? No, right? Because it's so well designed, so well thought out that even a child can operate it. In fact, these days my kids operate it better than me. So sometimes I go to them for advice, right? On the other hand, if you see the right hand bottom picture, a door is a very simple thing, right? It has been there since ages, right? And it is very easy to still design a wrong door, right? So if you see, the door says push, but the handles are for pull, and 5 times out of 10, a human being using that door will try to push the door instead of pulling the door, just because the design is wrong, right? So what again I'm trying to say is, the technology has to be human centered. The AI application has to be human centered, because otherwise it's very easy to spoil even a simple design like a door, and at the same time be able to build complex devices like smartphones, right? So what are the so today maybe I'll just talk about two lessons from psychology that I think are important when we talk about AI, and one of those is again this is by Gopnik. Gopnik is a key researcher and a thought leader in the space of AI. So what she says is, one of the most fascinating things about AI is it's not easy for us to predict which of the problems will be difficult for AI to solve and which ones will be easier. In fact, when we started with AI, experimenting with AI has been here for a long time now, right? So we started with what we thought as most complex problems, like playing chess, right? So 1996, Gary Kasparov was defeated by IBM Deep Blue. But what we are finding out now is that something that we treat as complex, we human beings treat as complex, like playing chess, in fact is easier for AI to solve, because it's at the end of the day it's still rule based. On the other hand, something simple like mimicking the learning of a baby, right, who is trying to learn alphabets or learn different shapes or learn different recognize different persons, those are more difficult to solve, right? So the message here is that just a second. Yeah. So I'll give you another example. So this is like Gary Kasparov ran a freestyle chess in 2005, and that tournament, the way it was run was they had grandmasters competing in the tournament. They had grandmasters who were aided by supercomputers, and they were grandmasters, and they were amateurs who had just computers. And ideally, the outcome was what they surprised Gary Kasparov. And what he says is, my expectation was that a grandmaster with a supercomputer would win the competition. On the other hand, it was a couple of amateurs in US with their 3 laptops who won that tournament. And why was that? Because they were able to coach their computers to look deeply into the positions that effectively counteracted the superior chess understanding, right, of the grandmasters. So what we are learning now is that a weak human plus a machine plus a better process is much more capable than a strong human plus a machine plus an inferior process. And that is where, this is having a profound impact on the way we look at developing some of these algorithms now. The way we should look at AI is they're not like, it's not about deep learning, it's not about machine learning, it's not about automation. It's about human computer extended intelligence. And I'll again give a very simple example of a calculator. So whatever problems calculator solves, we also can solve as human beings. In fact, before the calculator was invented, we used to solve them by hand. But even though we can solve them now, we still use the help of a calculator because it helps us be faster and concentrate on the bigger problem, right, than concentrating on the simple math behind it, right? So the way we are approaching AI now, or the way thought leaders in the industry are approaching AI now, is not to see AI as replacing human beings or automation, but it's like an extension of or aiding human beings to better in what they are doing, right? The other important lesson on psychology that again is having a profound impact on AI now. Yeah. I think many of you would have read this book from Kahneman on thinking fast and slow. So what it says is there are 2 systems of thinking. One is system 1, which is very fast, on the fly, and then it's like system 2, which is more elaborate, which relies on evidence. You analyze the evidence and then you decide, right? So in our day-to-day life, system 1 defines most of the decisions that we take, and it's rightly so, right? If I take 10 minutes to decide what shirt I'm going to wear, probably that's not an effective way to, I'll end up, not doing my actual work, but deciding my entire day what should I eat and all of that, right? So system one is important, but that is the failure of system one is it does not rely on evidence, right? And that is where equations are better than human beings, right? Because equations rely on evidence, right? So which is why experts need equations. But at the same time, equations can be biased too. So if you again see this example, this was a in US they started using a AI algorithm to help the judge decide whether a particular parole should be approved or not, right? And what they found out that again because of the historical data, the algorithm too had a bias, and it tend to approve more application of white inmates than black inmates. And in fact, the data on the other hand about reoffense, right? So reoffense is when the during the parole period, if the inmate or if that person does some other criminal offense, of blacks were far less than whites. So using an equation is not the answer to everything, right? So is equation greater than an expert? And this is where probably a small section of AI practitioners are tending towards, right? So they're saying that equations will be greater than experts, right? But the way to look at it is use these equations as a prosthesis, right? So they are an aid, right? So it will always be that equations plus experts will be greater than experts, and that is the way to look at AI. Right? So lastly, I just want to say that again quote Don Norman, and I am in the business of intelligent automation as well. So other than data analytics, intelligent automation is very close to my heart, and I do a lot of work in that space. But the way to look at it is we don't need automation, we need augmentation. So when we augment our judgment, our empathy with AI, then we make decisions which are consistent, which are not biased, which are more informed, and which are more meaningful at the end of the day. So that's all I had, Shyam and Professor Lata and Date and Professor Das. Thank you so much. And back to you again.
Yeah, thanks a lot, sir. It was really insightful. So maybe AI is still not going to overtake the world if it's classifying banana as a toast, and yeah, so maybe to conclude this, so we still need human intelligence to extract the best out of the AI, so which is being termed as human-centered AI by you. So thanks a lot, sir. It was really insightful. We really look forward to the Q&A. So whoever has any question to ask, they can put the question in the chat box and put the name of the speaker to whom they want to ask about that. So thanks a lot, sir. So now we'll invite Jai Pankaj, sir. So Mr. Jai Pankaj, he is the Director, Marketing Technology and Data Science, P&G India. He is an IIM Lucknow and NITE Surathkal alumnus with more than 19 years of experience. He has been with P&G for more than 11 years and currently heads the marketing, technology, and data science for P&G India. He is focused on unleashing the power of data and technology to meaningfully engage with consumers. Prior to P&G, he has worked as task manager, analyst in Dell, and he has also worked in IB roles with UBS Investment Bank. And yeah, he is a CFA charter holder. So thanks a lot, sir, for taking out your time. And now over to you, sir. You are on mute, sir. We can't hear you. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. It's fine now. We can hear you.
Excellent. So first of all, thank you for the opportunity to talk to all of you today. Just so I understand, how many people do we have as participants right now? So there are 20 people on the call.
Yes, sir. So there are 20 participants on the call, and we are streaming this on the YouTube. So all the students are watching it from the YouTube channel, basically.
Excellent. All right. So thanks, Jagdeep, first of all, for your set of insights on where we are headed as far as AI is concerned. And I wanted to bring the attention to a diametrically opposite side of the data analytics spectrum, and that is really on base data to inform our business decisions and how we can use data and analytics to really drive the core part of our businesses, right? And the way I wanted to start by was contrasting between the descriptive and the predictive side of the analytics, right? And what Jaidev mentioned was more on the predictive side, where you're using AI to form judgment. But there is much to be had already if you focus on the descriptive side of the analytics spectrum. And often it is overlooked, often it is assumed that it is being done and it is being done well. But often it is far from the truth, and it is not the case really. And therefore, I would argue that we need to bring back the focus, bring back the attention, and bring back a sense of importance to how much value just descriptive analytics can create. So I think it is obvious by the terms that we are using between descriptive and predictive that descriptive is to understand what has happened, why it has happened, and how can we fix it. Predictive is more using some of the machine learning and artificial intelligence to understand what, why, and cull out patterns from there and then try to predict what might happen in the future and therefore what you might need to do. So that's descriptive analytics, and I feel like any operation that you're running, any business that you're running, whether you're going to the market to sell something, whether you are in a store where people are buying and there is a cash register where cashiers are helping people check out their purchases. There are plenty of opportunities for leaks to happen, and sometimes these leaks happen because people have malintent, but sometimes leaks just happen because there are many moving parts and different kinds of people and organizations come together to produce the outcome. And therefore, if you were to use descriptive analytics to truly understand across your entire value chain what is missing and where things are less than ideal, you would be able to eke out a further, 20, 30, 50% efficiency compared to where you are. And what you need to do, and the way you want to think about descriptive analytics, is that in the entire value chain, you are putting down small probes to understand, hey, is the soil temperature exactly what it needs to be? And if it is not, what you could do to kind of bring it back to the ideal state. And those probes need to be put at regular intervals along the chain and be measured and monitored in a very concerted way. What we found often is that while on the outside things might look green, things might look perfect, and things might be looking like they're meeting the KPIs, but if you split things into their smaller parts, you will find out that there are chunks which are reds. And so on an aggregate, if you break like an area into 64 squares and think about amongst the 64 squares, there might be at least 4 or 5 that there are reds. So on the whole, you may see it as 90-95% okay, but if you went and zoomed in and looked at those 4 red squares, you will be able to hopefully turn that around and make them green as well and taking your overall KPI higher. So sometimes we get waylaid by looking at things at a much more macro level without taking the time to double click and go like n levels deeper to understand where the reds are and solve for those reds. So So it's very important. One of the things in descriptive analytics is the power of detail and taking the time to go deeper and deeper and understand where the opportunities are. I remember one particular example from my career in the past where we were looking at cashiers and how they were operating at a retail store. And we found that there were some cashiers who were more prone to do refunds and returns than the others. And as soon as we were able to identify those outliers, we understood as well that there were tremendous loss prevention opportunities. Today, if you're a food delivery company, you will understand that there are restaurants and there are food delivery boys who have a greater tendency to do cancellations, and every cancellation fetches a grand sum of $150 in some cases. So there is a real incentive for people to game the system, while the original design and intent of that policy was to help the consumer. So when you use your analytics to understand these leaks and these inefficiency opportunities, you're able to tighten and get more value out of your business for sure. So, but if you look at it, and if things are as simple as I have pointed them out to be, and particularly when you compare the performance across the median, right, and try to bring everyone below the median to a base minimum. When you try to compare performance as a trend in where you are versus your own performance in the last 6 months or last 12 months, you will find very interesting opportunities that you can uncover. And and tie this with going deeper, you'll be able to derive a lot of benefits. So if descriptive analytics is so simple, why isn't it happening as much as it needs to the extent it needs to? And fundamentally, we see a couple of areas where the gaps are. One, I think the world of analytics professionals and the world of IT DevOps, sometimes they don't come together. And a lot of analytics professionals start with small amounts of data and are very successful in playing around with those small sets of data to drive decisions in smaller teams and smaller groups. But if you want to really scale something to a level that can create meaningful organizational impact across the entire length and breadth of your organization, you need the combination of great analytics to come together with great IT DevOps. And that's where a fundamental understanding of cloud computing concepts, data engineering, data model, data management really is very, very important. There was one case where I had the opportunity for another company to look at how they were running their leadership meetings, where CEOs, the global CEO, the regional CEOs used to come together to make decisions and to review the performance every quarter. And you wouldn't believe it, but the dashboards that they had was would like you have to wait for a good amount of time, about 10 to 15 seconds before a filter change would complete rendering. And that was a clear sign that whoever had designed it, in spite of something that was probably high visibility, given that it was going to be used by senior leadership, did not have the right team and the expertise to build a well-performing tool that would aid decision making. And if things are not as performing as it should be, people are turned off and they quickly walk away from that novelty. So one of the gaps where I see why descriptive analytics does not work as well as it needs to is because the DevOps, which is the core technology component, does not come together very well with the analytics professionals, and we need to rethink right from the design stage as to how we can address that opportunity. The other opportunity that I see is really in how we can make the effort more broad-based. So, of course, in any organization of, let's say, 40,000, 50,000 people, you might have like I don't know, 5% of them who are truly analytics professionals, but the remaining 95% of the organization are in different formal roles. So how do you make the movement more broad-based so as to be able to create a bigger impact out of it? And that's where I feel the need for us to develop citizen developers. These are people who are not analytics professionals, who are not technology professionals, who are people in the business, who are in the sales function, in the marketing function. And how can they improve their capabilities, become more analytical themselves, become more sophisticated and comfortable with the tools of choice that your organization has? And how do you create the training program and the foundations for them to come together and embrace this change? And I really like the fact earlier where NITIE is now introducing hands-on Python coding in early on in your program, and I think that's a brilliant step, because regardless of whether you end up being an analytics professional or not, it's very, very handy for you to have basic knowledge of some basic visualization, data manipulation tools, definitely. So again, together with the fact that DevOps needs to come together with analytics professionals, the other need that we recognize very strongly is to make the movement more broad-based and have citizen developers come in and provide the momentum that is necessary for all of us. And then towards the end, I wanted to bring 2 or 3 points on how do you derive greater value from descriptive analytics. So the way you can derive is make sure that the insights that you are able to generate are exception-based versus browsing-based. Now, if you take any part of your business and you look at different KPIs in that business, it could be as many as 40, 50 KPIs. And it's humanly impossible for you to wrap your head around these 40, 50 matrices across the depth of your entire business. And that's where it is very important that people don't have to spend 2 hours browsing screen by screen, almost to the extent of 100 or 200 pages of it. Just give me a second. Sorry about that. The parents are working from home. So back to the point on making the insights more consumable. The way to do this is to recognize that often what is lacking is not information or insights, but the problem is that there is too much of it, and there's too much data hitting people. So 50 KPIs, imagine like 7 levels. You go from your category brand to power SKU level. You go from your geography hierarchy, which is national, and then state, then city, then district, and so on. There are so many combinations possible across those 50 KPIs, 5 levels of product, 10 levels of geography, and there are other dimensions as well. And it's not possible for any single individual to wrap their heads around this massive amount of data that they need to understand. And that's why it is very, very important that as we think about descriptive analytics, we tie it with exception-based insights. To say, if I am as a sales manager for a particular district, I wake up one morning, I should be able to see what are the 5 things that I could do today, which will move the needle on my business. And these 5 insights would be rank ordered based on their effect, the final size's price, and that's going to help the power of analytics far more than just building a very descriptive tool where people have to spend 2 hours browsing through 50 pages that are about their business. The second one that could make the impact greater is by delivering the insights in a very consumable way where people are ready to receive those insights. So these could be on the phones, These could be on the emails. So instead of they having to travel, open a new screen, a new window where they could get these insights, could we bring the insights to people so that they are ready to make the actions and the decisions? That we found to be very, very helpful in driving the journey forward. And the last one is on influence, right? So, of course, whenever you have an insight, there's a particular individual in the organization hierarchy who needs to act on it. But at the same time, how do you maintain visibility of the opportunities across the organization hierarchy? So, while maybe on a daily basis, you're sharing the insights with individuals at the working team level, but how could you aggregate those insights up on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis, make sure that you expose the opportunity to different middle management and senior leadership levels as well on the opportunities that are there. So just to sum up on the last 15 minutes, there is immense power in descriptive analytics. Predictive is good and there's a place for that, but there is much value to be had in driving your base business through the power of descriptive analytics. There's power in detail. So often when you look at the sum total of what is happening in 64 individual squares, you may tend to miss out that there are at least 4 red squares that can be turned green. And if you just focused on those reds across the length and breadth of your business, you will be so much better off. The third one is the descriptive analytics will help you identify where are the leaks in your entire value chain, and you need to suitably put the probes so that you can understand how you're doing across versus the peer average, how are you doing versus your past performance, so that you can understand those reds and those exceptions. The biggest opportunity or gap areas that I see are in DevOps coming together with analytics professionals and in developing a community of citizen developers who are trained, who are digitally fluent, and who can take the movement and make them more broad-based across the length and breadth of your organization. And lastly, if we have to derive bigger impact, we need to make the insights more consumable. But bringing those insights to people where they are ready to receive it versus having more friction in the way they can access those insights. Of course, this ties back to making sure that people have to only understand the top 5 to-do things versus having to swim in an ocean of insights. And lastly, make sure you don't forget the influence so that you're able to expose different parts of your organization hierarchy to the insights that are coming through versus only working with one set of stakeholders. Hopefully you found that useful, and once again, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today.
Yeah, thanks a lot, sir. It was really insightful, and was able to sync with that. Basically, like the integration of DevOps with an analytics professional is pretty necessary, because as of one fact is there, like almost 80% of the projects in the analytics domain don't see the light of production. So that is very important for the companies to extract value for that. And there's a lot of information around that. Basically, once we, like in any analytics project, we tend to get a lot of information, but ultimate value, like to extract the ultimate value, is still a bit of a challenge. And yeah, so we learned a lot from your words, and thanks a lot, sir. So now I would like to welcome Mr. Syed Atif Umar, sir. He is the Senior Director Analytics at Flipkart. He has a total of 18 years of experience in data science and analytics and business strategy. Currently, he is leading category design, marketplace, and planning analytics for Flipkart. Prior to Flipkart, he has spent around 9 years with Citigroup, heading the data science and next generation lab for Citi's global decision management in Bangalore. He's passionate about technology, digital decision sciences, and the opportunities that AI creates in improving decision making. He has worked across geographies and helped organizations build their analytics capabilities in India. He has previously worked with GE, Barclays, and American Express. And a bit of interest. So basically, he's into fitness and long distance running. He is a sub 3-hour marathoner. Was the fastest Indian at the Boston Marathon. So glad to have you here, sir, at this platform. We are looking forward to your words.
Thanks, Shyam. Thanks for that intro. And okay, so what I'll try to do is, I don't have a document to share, but essentially the way I was looking at it is e-commerce and the industry that I am part of currently, which is retail e-commerce, essentially tries to transform shopping as an experience for customers. So I'll try to see when a customer, people like you and me, shop, what are the things that they look for, and how can analytics play a role in, or how does analytics at Flipkart play a role in sort of transforming that experience and making it better for the customer. So if you see people in your generation mostly have been, when they started going out, you've been exposed to modern retail. Modern retail, I mean, is where you have malls, you have stores like Shoppers Stop, Lifestyle, Debenhams, things like that. That's modern retail. But people of my generation and probably your parents, people who are 40s or 50s, we were exposed to what we call as traditional retail format, where you knew the customer, the retailer knew the customer, the retailer knew the customer's family. That's how. And so if you start, what essentially shopping as an experience entails is, the first thing the customer expects is personalization. It's very, very important. Traditional retail had this personalization very high. You remember there would be a Aurora Sari store where your mom used to go and all, and they will always sort of remember the name. You will say, "Behen ji, ab bahut din ke baad aayi." Then they will say, "Behen ji ko pure silk dikhao." Essentially, it's nothing but remembering what your mom always bought and what is essentially her likes, her brand preferences, things like that. So personalization was very, very heavy and high in traditional retail. It got lost in modern retail. You go to Shoppers Stop, you go to Nalli's, you will get a huge selection, but nobody remembers what Aurora ji used to remember about your mom. Nobody remembers you like pure silk, you like chiffon, you like pink color, you like brown color. Nobody remembers that. You have all the colors you have. So selection and choice improved, but personalization went for a toss. And that is what sort of e-commerce does. We provide a much higher selection than what any retailer can, because we can mix retailers and all. So you have huge choice, but we also can personalize your experience in a much better way as compared to, the challenges that modern retailer faces. So Shoppers Stop cannot change their aisle, change their store format for different people. But Amazon can, Flipkart can, because we know what you did when you came the last time. We know what you've done in the last 12 months. We know what brands you prefer. We know what sort of price point you look like. We know what colors you prefer. So we can do everything on personalization. And I'm not talking about just say apparel as a category, but a lot of work, and you would have heard in not just in retail e-commerce, but any e-commerce, lot of work goes in understanding a customer's persona, understanding what a customer is. Unlike a bank where I worked in banks for about 15 years, you get a lot of proprietary information about customer. You know customer's age, you know the customer's gender. If the customer is on the deposit side or a savings account, you probably know a customer's income levels. So you know a lot. You know the customer's verified address. And in a lot of cases, for a lot of banking or financial services products, you know the customer's dependents, and also you know a lot more about the customer. Unlike a Swiggy or a Zomato or a Flipkart or an Amazon, we don't even know whether that's your true name. You could actually be listed as this. We only have your email ID. In some cases, we don't even have your email ID. We definitely don't. We asked you for gender, but you could put any gender. We don't know. We asked you for age. You could put any age. So we don't know your age. We don't know your gender. We don't know your income levels. However, what we know is what you do on our platform. And you'd be surprised to understand how easy it is to predict gender, affluence levels, dependents, age, all of it by just maybe 5 or 6 transactions that you do on e-commerce. That's on an average, that's the number of transactions people do. And for 80-85% of people, we are able to make that estimation. It depends. And again, I don't want to, of course, if you see analytics or machine learning, data science are all things which in a way sort of define or sort of crystallize stereotypes. There are only 8 or 9 types of personalities, or if you look at certain personality tests, up to 16 personalities types, and then there are only 2 genders, there are 5 age groups, there are 4 or 5 affluence levels. So if you look at this, you will come up with about 100-120 sort of personas of customers, and then you can add some demographic things. And you know now your customer clusters, you can personalize. So personalization is the key to a big improved customer experience, because that is what Aurora G used to provide. Aurora G remembered what you did last time, what your shopping budget was, what colors you prefer, what brands you prefer, and the only thing that say an e-commerce cannot provide, which also there is a lot of experiments going on, is people love to bargain and get a good deal. So while e-commerce provides a lot of good deals, it does not today provide the flexibility for you to sort of bargain. So that's one area which is there. But otherwise, depending on, for example, if you type check shirts, people in the eastern part of India and people in the western part of India look at very different shirt patterns when they prefer. So if you look at people in western India, they prefer more plain shirts. Simple thing. People in the eastern part of India, Bengal, Odisha and all, they prefer more small checks. Southern India is again lining or bigger checks. Things like that. I'm just making it up. These are not very difficult patterns to understand. These are patterns that, and customer does not write, but a customer wants that when I write a check shirt, they should show me what I want to prefer. So that is one preference that comes across from a demographic piece. Similarly, depending on your shopping purchases, you need not have shopped in apparel with us for us to understand your brand preference. You could have shopped in, say, a general merchandise category. You could have shopped for home furnishing. You could have shopped for electronics. Based on that, we are able to understand your price and brand preference and able to translate that at a category level. Because in general, there are most customers, especially after a certain age group, they have very consistent brand and price perception preferences across categories. However, people below 25 will behave very differently in different sort of brands. They might be very, very savvy in certain outward looking categories, which when I say outward looking categories, what I mean is categories where the shopping of which is shown and seen in social gatherings, versus there are a lot of other things where, for example, undergarments. A lot of people, the brand preference for undergarments changes very significantly between the brand preference for normal t-shirts or shirts. So that is a difference that is there, but we see this very, very clearly in people below 25 and 30. It is also there. I mean, and again, analytics is all about maximizing likelihood or probability. We cannot be deterministic. But as you age, those consistencies in brand preferences increase. If you are a value-conscious shopper, you will buy value-conscious brands or value brands, whether it is inner garments, whether it is a t-shirt or a shirt, whether it is a headphone, whether it is a phone. You will be consistent, but people below 25, they will be inconsistencies. And our models, our predictions understand that. We understand that which categories are more social facing, where the brand preferences will be higher, where the brand preferences will be lower. So that is all about, and if you see and again, if you look at tech platforms, whether it is a Swiggy, Zomato, or Make My Trip, or Amazon, or Flipkart, bulk of our data science or data engineering work goes on ranking algorithms. Ranking algorithms are what? They are essentially trying to personalize things for you. Personalize things for you by remembering what you have done and mapping you to one of the 100 or 150 or 200 sort of personas that we have on the platform. And rankings can be there for anything. I mean, we could build personalization on propensity. What is it that you're going to buy? Which is what? If you are searching for something, we can sort of optimize the search for you, which means essentially if you are, just as I said, when you put check shirts, we need to understand whether you mean half sleeve shirts or full sleeve check shirts, whether we mean check shirts or say lining shirts, whether you mean branded shirts or unbranded shirts. How do I understand that is all based on which, because I would have at any point more than 1 million shirt options to show you. Most customers do not go beyond 20 options. Most customers, in fact, which means that if I don't put the ones that are most relevant for you in the first 20 or 30, my chances of optimizing that sale or improving that experience goes away, which is where Aurora Ji used to sort of excel, because two things. One is Aurora Ji remembers and personalizes. The second is in an online channel, offline channel, Aurora Ji can also always ask. Which is again what a lot of sort of e-tail or e-commerce platforms keep on doing is we have a lot of filter options where we want to understand, because a lot of times while our algorithms work, no algorithm can beat what the customer is saying at that point. So if a customer is filtering on brands, automatically the algorithm will learn from that filter and optimize it further. So which again is what, see, we have to sort of, the way you have to look at it is whenever you transform a process, you need to understand that process, how it happens in the native form. This is how shopping happens in the native form. The customer goes, zeroes in on things, tells people what they want, and based on that, expects relevant choices and then makes that shopping. So in e-commerce, there is nobody to guide you there, and that is where analytics and engineering have to play a role, because these are your personalization advisors where they can make that. I'll take a pause there, see if people have questions. Otherwise, I'll go to the next steps of how do you really make shopping as a process transform. Okay, so maybe we'll take.
Yeah, actually, sir, on the YouTube we have we are getting some questions. So maybe we'll take at the end everything.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Sure. Okay.
We are getting some 300 plus participants, so they are shooting all the questions. So we'll take everything at the end. Yes,
makes sense. So moving on. So once you have solved for how do I say choice and personalization, now comes about speed. Essentially, if you see, one of the things that both traditional retail and modern retail had, which to a large extent they score over e-commerce, is once you have made the choice, you walk out with that product. So the speed is almost zero. For us, even our best, and you look at Licious, which is very, very strong in terms of the speed to turn around. You look at Amazon Fresh, you look at Flipkart Quick. These are all formats where post your choice, we actually make it deliver to you in about 2 hours or so. But beyond that, most of them, in essential, if you look at it, modern e-commerce retail takes about 3 to 4 days to really. Maybe there are some products that are delivered in 1 day. There are some products that will take about 10 days, depending on where the inventory is, where the now there is a whole science and analytics team which actually optimizes speed for customer. The first thing starts is which categories are speed sensitive, which categories are not speed sensitive. So that's the first piece to understand. Are you okay to wait for 4 days? I'm just making it up. You might be okay to wait for 10 days for a razai. You will not be okay to wait for even 1 day for a grocery product or food product. Your tolerance for speed, expectation of speed will be much higher for electronics. The whole gratification, you want to buy a phone or a headphone, the moment you like it, you now want it within 1 day or 2 days. Even 2 days looks very, very long for that. So this is again where analytics plays a very, very significant role in understanding speed sensitivity at a customer cohort level. And the way we do it is we understand where so if you look at when you go to the e-commerce platform, whenever you are making a selection choice, you see the SLA, which is the promised delivery date, and you basically understand there. A lot of what we do is we have tried multiple experiments. See, a lot of learning in this space is by explore and exploit. You expose customers the same product with different speeds, slightly different products with say different speeds, and try and see where essentially once you have enough data, you will be able to understand at a category customer cohort level where conversion, which is a customer viewing a product to a customer buying the product, view to buy ratio drops significantly. And this at a product, at a category level, at a customer cohort level, we understand where that delta is. We try to optimize it for there. So that is from the customer side. You, of course, sort of customer has given their expectation. So just making it up, maybe it could be for metro customers, the expectation for grocery is day 1, within a day. Expectation for, say, electronics is within 2 days. Expectation for clothes is 5 days. Expectation for home furnishing is, say, 10 days, furniture and home furnishing. Now, that is customer expectation and delight. How do we really make that happen? That is all based on inventory analytics or inventory planning. The better your inventory is planned, whether it is, and of course, if you see most of our inventory is actually third party. We are actually a marketplace where hundreds of thousands of sellers come in, millions of customers come in, and basically they understand. But we need to know, and that is where inventory planning and helping our sellers helps, because ideally, if a customer is looking for a razai sitting in Bangalore, I should map that customer to a seller which is maybe in Tirupur or Chennai or in Bangalore as compared to a seller in, say, Jodhpur or Jaipur, because it will take more time. But then I need to give that estimate to the customer, to the seller in, say, Tirupur or Chennai, what the demand for razais will be from Bangalore, so that they can accordingly inventorize. We don't want everybody to have. Similarly, there is a lot of inventory which both retailers like Flipkart or Amazon or other keep in their own warehouses for faster speeds. So, which is again where we understand which categories are speed sensitive. The more speed sensitive categories, we provide space for the sellers in our warehouses so that we can deliver speed. And a lot of neural networks, a lot of advanced AIs are used in optimizing or forecasting inventories very, very well. Because the better you forecast, the better you will be able to service. Otherwise, what will happen is for that razai, you will have to go to that seller in Jodhpur. Razai is not a high margin product, so you cannot ship it by air, which means it will come by road, which again means that it will take at least 4, 5, 6 days. And the longer it takes, the poorer the customer experiences. If you see, there are a lot of analytics goes into understanding when cancellations start increasing. There is a threshold at which cancellations start increasing for customers, and we need to ensure that our delivery happens below that threshold. Otherwise, there is a customer. There are a lot of customers who actually buy the same product from both platforms. So they will buy a Razai from Amazon, they will buy a Razai from Flipkart, and they will say whoever delivers it first, I will choose. And that is why on our platform returns are so high. Not Flipkart as a platform, but in general, e-commerce as a platform, returns are much higher than what you see in either traditional retail or modern retail. My estimate on Shoppers Stop returns would be just about 2 or 3%. The returns on e-commerce are at least 4 or 5 times of that, which is the reason why we need to have a very, very sophisticated algorithm to understand how we manage and delight customers on speed. Okay, just a second. The last point is about which again your traditional retailer scored a lot was on checking back with customers, on reminding customers what they wanted. So Aurora ji will, if you see, if people don't come for a long time, they might give a call, and now today the WhatsApp is ubiquitous. They might go check back. They will also, so they do 2 things. One is they will check back regularly to ensure that you are their customer. So that ensures loyalty. The second is, for example, if my family buys, say, silk sarees and Banarsi silk sarees, and Aurora ji has got a good stock of Banarsi silk sarees, he will pass a message to them that we are getting we've got a good stock or selection of this. Why don't you come and check in? But then again, if you see, even modern retail does it. You keep getting messages from Shoppers Stop, from say Lifestyle, from all retailers all the time. The challenge is modern retail is unable to personalize that very well. What they do is most of those messages are broadcast, and the way the message. See, the problem with today's targeting frameworks are SMSs are so cheap. Emails are so almost negative, almost zero cost email, SMS, WhatsApp and all, that people feel क्या फर्क पड़ता है, सबको भेज दो, it is free of cost. No customer, you have to understand this, no customer messaging is free. Every time you send a customer an irrelevant message, you reduce the probability of the customer opening even a relevant message the next time. So the way to look at email as a channel from a cost perspective is not the actual cost of sending the email, which probably might be 1 or 2 paisa or even less than that if you are huge scale. The cost of an email or an SMS is sending a broadcast is actually what impact it does on the next time you send a relevant message. So if I get 8 messages from, say, Flipkart, all of it is irrelevant. The 9th message that is relevant to me, I will not open even that, because I have already identified Flipkart messages as junk messages, Flipkart emails as junk emails. I don't even open them. So there is a huge cost to that. And that is where data sciences have that we try to optimize the number of messages that we send to customer. We try to optimize relevance of a message. So there is always a threshold of propensity of click-through rate, because most messages have a link to click, or most email have a click. There is always a hurdle of click-through rate below which we don't allow customers to be targeted, because the challenge is it's not about cost, it is about experience. The more we broadcast our offers, we are actually removing personalization, we are reducing customer experience, and overall reducing the likelihood maximization. So that's another piece that we do a lot. Just a second, let me refer to my notes. The last piece, again, which traditional retail does very well is, traditional retail is very, very strong in getting feedback from customers. You could tell your Aurora ji that last time you were, the product was not good, or you said, आपने मुझे 3000 की साड़ी दी, बगल में my neighbor got it for 2,800. So these are all poor experience markers where a customer got a lower price somewhere else, a customer got poor quality, and while there are a lot of ways e-commerce platforms listen to this, there are direct and indirect feedback. So we spend a lot of our analytic capabilities in hearing this, both active voices and passive voices of customers. A lot of active voices are indirect. So people post their experiences on social media. This is an active voice of a customer, but it's an indirect message, because they are not telling me which product they are talking about. They are going to say Facebook or Twitter, and they're saying Flipkart as a platform sucks. They have poor quality. They have this. They also, and to be fair to customers are very rational. They also praise the platforms wherever it has been. So while I do agree that there will always be a negative bias to the customer voice, because people are more likely to complain about poor experience, less likely to sort of praise good experience on social media. So, but we can measure that if we control for it. We also do a lot of active listening, which is through surveys and others. And based on that, understand what customers are saying about which product and which this. And that's where we, so in a nutshell, I think these are things where we work: personalization, speed, and customer experience. Yeah, happy to take questions whenever they are.
Yes, sir.
Yep, thanks.
Yeah, so thanks a lot, sir. We really understood a lot about personalization at customer level. And so previously, companies used to think like customization or personalization is not achievable at scale. But now companies like e-commerce giants like Flipkart and all are proving it wrong. Basically, they are providing personalization at scale. So that was really insightful, sir. We have noted down the questions. Because of time constraints, we'll move forward. We'll take all the questions at the end. Thanks a lot, sir. Yeah. So our next speaker is Mr. Sashikaran, sir. He is the lead supply chain practice at Tredence. He is an IIM Lucknow alumnus with more than 15 years of experience working in the industry. He currently leads the supply chain and manufacturing practices at Tredence. He works at the intersection of consulting, operations and planning, and product management. This allows him to deliver breakthrough solution opportunities for clients. And prior to Tredence, he has worked with Maybach Consulting in supply chain consulting role, and Amazon in product management role. And he has also worked with several newest startups in the analytics and product roles. So glad to have you here, sir. Now over to you.
Thanks, everyone. First of all, thanks to the NITIE community for this invitation. It's always a pleasure to be interacting with the students, and I have some fond memories of visiting the campus, and also one particular memory of an alumnus telling me, "Watch out for the leopards in the night." So I hope you guys are missing those leopards these days during the COVID season. Yeah? So yeah, thanks again. And it's a tough act to follow. The three panelists have been excellent storytellers, and kind of it enforces how we Indians are very good at storytelling, and fantastic, captivating story from Pankaj to Atif to Jaydev. I really loved the augmented intelligence discussion at the beginning by Jaydev to the power of descriptive analytics and the challenges with descriptive analytics implementation that Pankaj took us through. And the Aurora story of Atif was just a killer. So I'll try my best to also hold the audience interested in the next part of the discussion. And seeing that there are about 200 people on YouTube, I felt it's going to be a challenge holding their interest. But considering that IPL matches are in the evening, I hope they will be paying some attention to the story. Otherwise, a lot of great stories by the panelist members before me would have not had their impact. Yeah. So thanks again. So let me try to take the story forward. A little bit about me before I contextualizing the story. As Shyam said, I have worked with Maybach. Shyam, am I audible? Because I started getting
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're perfectly audible. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, just let me just close the door. Some construction work started next to me just as I was about to start speaking. Okay, all right. So I work for Mibak. I worked for Amazon when, at the time when Amazon was starting to operate in India. I was there when the bell rang and we got our first orders. And I was there for 2 years with them, saw the giant of a company still moving in an agile manner. That was a fantastic learning. Made a lot of other career mistakes, made a lot of career mistakes after that in the space of startups, did things on my own, and realized what I'm good at and what I'm not. And eventually, when I joined Tredence 4 years back, a lot of lifelong passions have come together. My love for industrial engineering, which is what I've always wanted to do all my life. Applied mathematics, leading the team, and founding a business. So that's what we do. That's what I did at Tredence. Started the supply chain and manufacturing practice within the larger environment of an analytics services firm. We wanted to be a pioneer in that, with that idea, and yeah, we are on that path. So now, taking the story forward from where Pankaj, Jaidev, and Atif left, I want to talk about a use case where we have implemented machine learning, optimization methods. I would direct to say AI. It still is a big beast that I don't think I understand fully. But let me just stick to applied mathematics, statistical methods, and OR in the field which is probably very close to folks at NITIE, which is operations management. Yeah. So that's the subject matter of or the story of my next 15 minutes. Yeah. So now we, as a firm, we specialize in last mile implementation, which means taking the big ideas and executing them in order to realize the impact. That has been the focus of my team for all the years that we have spent at Tredence and continuing to do so. So one such use case was with a home improvement retailer in Northern America. A home improvement retailer, you can imagine what they sell. They sell basically do-it-yourself kind of toolkits for home improvement. They may be selling furniture. They may be selling implements. They may be selling some consumer durables, right? That's the kind of the firm that you can imagine, right? So that was the firm. And we were working with your e-commerce business, which constituted roughly about 20% of your overall business. Now, within this e-commerce channel, when you place an order on the e-commerce website, essentially you get to see a promise of delivery. Just give me a second. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, so you get a customer delivery promise, right? The date on which you receive the material. Now, let's say I am this e-commerce retailer and I want to ensure that I get that order from you when you see the customer delivery promise. What would I do? I would simply want to give you a very, very aggressive delivery promise. Even if I believe that the delivery is going to happen in 5 days, I might just say 2 days. Simply because I want to not lose your order, right? Great. I will probably end up getting that order on that day. But what will happen is you may never shop with me again, right? Because you would have seen the order actually getting delivered in 5 days, and you just don't trust me again in your life. That's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is that because I am very, very keen on delivering or in retaining the trust of the customer, I go to the other end of the spectrum and I give a delivery promise of 7 days, just to be sure. Yeah. What's likely to happen? Yes, if you order, you will be delighted because you're receiving the delivery 2 days earlier to what you had anticipated. But it's very likely that you may not actually place the order. Because you're saving 7 days and you cannot wait for that washing machine to land on your doorstep 7 days from now, especially when a Flipkart or an Amazon may be doing it 3 days from now, right? So now I, as a retailer, end up choosing the right number in the spectrum based on my philosophical bent of mind on what do I value most. Do I value trust most, or do I value that day's revenue most, right? That is the old world of doing things, the old world of trying to take a bet based on what service levels we think we want to provide. But can this be made better? Most of you who have even the basic preliminary understanding of analytics would say yes. Of course, you don't have to be operating at the either end of the spectrum. You can choose to operate in a spectrum where your customer delivery promise is both aggressive, which means you give less number of days, but also accurate, right? Which means once you give a promise, you stick to it. That's what all of you would want to do. Now, but how do you do it? Again, very simple things. You will look at the historical performance and try to predict the future, right? Mind you, I'm not changing the performance. I'm just predicting the performance, right? With me so far? You're not changing the performance. There is no performance improvement happening here. It's only prediction of performance. Now let's take this step forward. What are the kind of things you will look at in the past to be able to predict the future? You may want to see where did the vendor ship the material from, the product from, right? Especially because you may not be holding all that inventory in your warehouses. You may be operating with a network of vendors. Where is this particular order coming from, which is, let's call it as the destination zip code? What was the product in the first place? What was the day of the week, the time of the day, month of the year, and so on and so forth. And all of the gentlemen who have spoken before me and, Chandan to follow, they would probably say that at least about 50 to 60 factors or a combination of factors go in this prediction model, right? And that's what a data scientist wants to do. The more factors there are, the more excited the data scientist feels in order to put them all into, into the model and predict what the future is going to look like. The story is all neat so far. But here is where the problem starts. You will not have data in the past that accounts for all these 50 to 60 factors. And when you don't have the data, the model prediction won't be right. If you try to apply them blindly, there are so many blanks in the data that your prediction is likely to be inaccurate. When I say inaccurate, essentially what I mean is the MAPE, right? Mean absolute percentage error, or the deviation from the mean tends to be high. And the moment your MAPE is high, or the deviation from the mean forecast is high, yet again, you go back to the original philosophical construct. Should I be aggressive or should I be accurate? So the problem you tried to solve, you went a couple of notches below, a couple of steps below, but then you got stuck and then you went back to the same philosophical construct. So now the problem starts unraveling and the God and the devil both are in the details. So now if you have to implement this is where you have to start thinking, not just as a data scientist, but also as a person who is into business operations. You should start thinking, I know that this product does not have enough data from the past, but can I figure out which is my look-alike product, which may have displayed the same characteristics, and perhaps collectively, they may be having more data than individual, right? Yes, accuracy will drop a little bit, but I will be able to gain more than I lose. Similarly, I may not have had data from a particular destination zip code, but if I know that the transporter has been a UPS or a DHL or a FedEx, can I figure out what their new service levels be for that destination code for which I don't have data in the past? Can I do some cross check? Can I do some benchmarking exercise? And can I fill the gaps? Yes, you can, right? So that's the next thing to do. And similarly, so on and so forth. It's a painful step-by-step iterative exercise, but that's exactly what it takes in order to ensure that your analytics does not lie in the beautiful world of modeling and actually creates a business impact. Yeah. Now I take this one step further, and of course, most data scientists, if they are business savvy, will keep doing this iteration over and over again until they reach a stage where their model starts bringing the accuracy and aggression together. And that's exactly what we are trying for. We are trying to be accurate as well as aggressive, which means we are trying to meet and converge these two twains. Now let's see one step further, right? What is delivery promise or delivery lead time? It's just a combination of two factors. The turnaround time for the vendor to ship the product and the transit time, right? This is the one-on-one of operations management, right? Go back to your first year, first course on what operations means. It's a sum of these factors, transit time and turnaround time. Now, one way to give the promise is to see what has been my individual transit times in the past and turnaround times, just plainly add them and put it up in front of the customer. That's my delivery lead time, right? That's a good starting point, but that's not a good ending point. What one has to see is that during the times when the customer did not perform on his or her turnaround time, did that vendor or not customer, when the vendor did not perform on a good turnaround time in the past, did the vendor choose an alternate shipping method which was faster, and therefore did he try to have transit time compensating for turnaround time? You will do it only if you have a business first approach to analytics and not an analytics first approach to business, right? Atif, beautifully, I will probably use that word. If you understand the native behavior of the business and then try to see how analytics can be infused with it, only then will you be able to do something like this. If you're blindly looking for data to answer questions, you may miss this because these will be the blind spots. Yeah. Now, over and over again, you keep coming across these business challenges, and incidentally, while all was great in our modeling world, after having gone through this, we realized that the COVID stuck, and the vendor data of the past or the data of performance of the past had nothing to do with what the vendor was performing on a given day. Then you start looking at a concept called performance decay of the model. You look at what we call as data drift and explainability. Essentially, you're looking at what is it that changing in the underlying data that will give me signals, very early signals, that this model is going to fail. And before you even say that I will improve the model, I think it's important to know that today, someone was speaking about it. I think Shyam, you were speaking about it when you said a lot of analytical models don't go into production simply because of these kind of issues. When they have gone into production and no one is looking at how the model is really performing, whether the underlying data that is feeding the model, if that is not working properly, if no one is paying attention to it, the models will fail. And that's exactly why you need to keep watching out for these such things. All right, so I'll conclude the story with one last bit of information. We made this model. We improved the customer delivery promise by over 20%. That led, imagine 20% in a scenario where your average delivery lead time in a home improvement retail environment is about 7 days, and you bring it up to 5 days. It's a huge impact. And the increased revenues, increased number of orders can easily, at the scale of the North American business or the Indian business, can be in millions of dollars, or I would even say hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's exactly the kind of impact that got created. All was great. Now we were trying to productionalize this, right? I'm making it, I'm exaggerating the story when I said we realized it during production, but very interestingly, problems crop up when we try to implement this model in a production system. And one such example is my model predicted that on a Monday, my promise should be 6 days. If the order was placed on a Tuesday, the promise should be 5 days. And if the order is placed on Wednesday, the model should say 8 days. Great, because that's what the data says, and I was able to show that. But when I'm trying to put these results into my website, the website does not have a field called date. Day of the week, I mean, sorry. The website doesn't know a Monday from a Tuesday. All this particular part of the website, I mean, where your customer delivery promise is being fed. So what do? You're losing one of the most significant factors of the model because the production system is not able to consume one of the most important variables. And at that point of time, you need to think outside the box. And maybe if I can use that word here freely, you need to think jugaad. How will I use the current systems? And I think we Indians are extremely good at it. We have worked with non-working systems for as long as we can remember, that we are able to think of a workaround and still being able to reach where we want to reach. And exactly what we did here was, we knew that the website cannot consume the day of the week variable, and that development would take a year and a half to happen because the IT teams projected that kind of a time frame for development. But what we realized is, if we can feed the data at the end of every day, so if I feed the Monday data on a Sunday night, and if I feed the Tuesday data on the Monday night, the website doesn't know that it's for Tuesday, but it doesn't have to know because it is getting a refresh every 24 hours. And as long as that refresh has been made and is active, the shelf life of that refresh is 24 hours. The website will behave as it has to behave for those 24 hours. And as long as we keep doing this refresh every week from outside, the website will still continue to function as if it is getting day of the week data, even without knowing, or even without that factor being there in the website, right? So that's exactly what we did. And therefore we were able to ensure that what we had put on the presentation to the CEO of the company was actually being done in real business. So yeah, that's and there are many such challenges. I guess we are running out of time. I just wanted to tell you that yes, you need to. Analytics can do wonders. Data science and AI. I think we are probably not even scraped the tip of the iceberg. But my sincere advice would be, have a business first approach. If you are on the business side of analytics, if you're a researcher, the paradigm is different. But if most of you will be on the business side of affairs, so always have a business first approach. Otherwise, all this may just end up being another fanciful thing, and some new way will come and replace it, right? So yeah, with that, I will conclude my part of the story. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir, for those insightful words. Clearly resonated with that. Like we should always focus from the business side as well. It will help us to derive maximum value from that. Thanks a lot, sir. And now I would like to invite Mr. Chandan Vijay, sir, Director Data Analytics GE. He's working with GE for nearly 17 years, and in his current role is Director Data Analytics. He leads the product management and development of a diversified set of analytics products and services catering to GE's industrial businesses. He leads a multidisciplinary team of both technical and functional resources in the development of a suite of personal aware solutions. He provides leadership and oversight across the data lifecycle, from ingestion and modeling to visualization and final product delivery, sir. So we are glad to have you here in our panelists, and over to you, sir, now.
Thanks, Shyam. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. And Shashi, thank you very much. It was great, insightful to hear you Atif, Jaidev, and Jay, everybody. Multitude of businesses and industries that you all come from, and it's fascinating to understand the different aspects that you bring to this enclave. So I'll go quickly into the subject area, which is like data analytics are the key to digital transformation. Now, one of the biggest things that at least from I come from my mindset is the three words that I'm going to focus on this whole conversation is data, the analytics, and the digital transformation. I'll try to cover using my own personal experiences with GE as the industry, as well as my role with data analytics and the digital transformation, which is the buzzword nowadays. So when I joined GE, if you recall back in 2003, it was mostly about projects, project management, and you're basically doing applications and portfolios and you're running things. Over a course of period of time, it changed from information management, where you're just managing data, to become information technology. Technology kind of became an integrated part of your offerings to within the company as well as to the customers. And then came the era of DT, whereas digital technology, whereas businesses started focusing on offerings in terms of digital and technology to the customers, to internal customers, external customers, and businesses. And now when we look at this current era, I think that is where the biggest thing comes up, which is digital transformation. Now, how I would at least relate the change from digital technology to digital transformation is DT was more focused around creating digital technology based products and offerings, which were like how you would basically give an enhanced offering to a customer. Whereas when you look at digital transformation, you are looking at either existing digital projects or basically trying to transform your way of doing business to make new products, new offerings to your customers to give them a much better enhanced experience on what they're getting. As Shashi kind of mentioned, right? Like if you offer them in 3 days versus 7 days, that's the kind of experience that the digital transformation can actually try to bring in. So if I come back to my 3 points, like data, analytics, and digital transformation, I spoke about transformation wherein you're trying to use your digital systems or data to make decision making and create more offerings for your internal customers or external customers and bring new offerings and customer experiences on board. Now, if you look at data as a key driver, right? And I'll come to more examples as I move into my discussion. If I look at data, data needs to have at least 4 broad qualities that I would look at it. When you look at transforming your businesses, you need to rely on data. The data needs to be analytical. You really need to have data which can give you insights, which can give you meaningful outcomes. The data should be such that you can apply intelligence onto it. Like when we talk about machine learning, AI, if your data is of poor quality, as Jay and Atif also mentioned, you may not be able to get the best reliable model outcome out of it. So it needs to be in such a way that the intelligence can be applied on data and get the right, if you have to call the predictive modeling out of it. When we look at analytics part, right, along with the data also needs to be having an operational grade availability. If your data is so thinly dispersed that you cannot make a meaningful decision-based system out of it, then your data quality is not great. And then, of course, the most important part that comes up is your data really compliant? If your data is not compliant, if you cannot certify the data within your own industry, within your own environment, the offerings that you give to your customers, what is the trustworthiness of that data? So, for example, in financials world, right, the people who come from finance, I think they understand the data needs to be in a certain way SOX certified, the Sarbanes-Oxley. There has to be right checks and balances to be there, that there are people who are having access, they have been certified, that their data which is stored in a way, there are those checks and balances. The data which is basically processed has certain controls. When you're changing any application or data, there is right change management implementations and all those things. So compliance of the data becomes very important because you really want to make sure that the data that you're offering for your analytical needs is certified. When people use the data for building their analytical solutions, they are having trust in your data. So from a strategy perspective, I would look at data as it should be analytical grade. It needs to be such that you can apply intelligence onto it. It needs to be at least of that minimal grade that you can use it for your operational metrics. And finally, it's a compliant data. You have the right checks and balances. You can certify the data in your industry and say, yes, if I'm in a manufacturing industry, I have all the relevant information threaded to it, which I can say if it's inventory and supply chain, I have end-to-end availability of the substantiation data which is available. Now, coming to the next part, which is analytics part, right? When you look at analytics, there are different kind of analytics that can be looked upon, which is basically descriptive analytics, where you're looking at the past set of data. We're trying to see, okay, whatever has happened in the past, you're looking at basis of that. Then the next set of is like diagnostic analytics, like, okay, in a customer kind of environment like Amazon or Flipkart, if the customer didn't buy something, we try to assess like, okay, what are the possible reasons that the customer did not buy it? Then comes the predictive analytics, by means of which we're trying to predict what may happen in future and bring in more insights around it. And then, of course, prescriptive analysis is, which is like, okay, you give recommendations to your customer that, okay, this is what something, for example, in Amazon, when you go, the Amazon or Flipkart shows that if you are buying this, customers also bought something similar to that. So they're trying to recommend and they're trying to influence your buying patterns. Now, when you look at the analytics, I would at least again look at analytics in two broad spectrums. First is your offerings and analytics. It needs to be persona-based offerings. By means of which I'm saying is that you are able to cater to the lowest grain consumer of your data in your organization to the most senior most executive in your organization, which is like CEOs, CFOs, or CEOs, the CXOs level. So when you look at data analytics, in terms of data, when you're building a system or predictive modeling, or you're trying to make analytical systems, it needs to have the complete raw data available in your system, wherein you are able to cater to analyst to an executive. And by means of which you're basically creating an analytical system, which is a persona-based offering. Now, if I were to consume through my own personal experiences, like I'm part of an organization which is called Finance Data Lake. I've been coming to NITIE for quite some time, and I've been part of the recruitment panel for the DTLP interns that we typically hire at G. So some of you might have interacted with me in last 3-4 weeks back where we did the recruitment. Now, when I look at the finance function as an organization, we look at data in multiple aspects, whereas there is analysts within the organizations, and then from the analyst, you have to look at all the way to the executive. So there is analysts, there is a functional finance manager, then there is a sub-business finance manager, then there is a business finance manager, then there could be a business CFO, and then of course there's a GEY CFO, and then the CXO, and then the board of directors. So you cannot have your offerings in digital, if you're to call transformation world or analytical distribution and outcomes. You need to be making your strategy around all your consumers of data. And by means of which, if I have to like tell from my work, the way we look at it is we create a data store from where people can come and ask for data as is raw. And this is the data mart, which is primarily consumed by the analyst. Because for them, their manager has asked them to prepare a simple Excel-based report that go in and give me a pivot of this XYZ parameters and show me how is it looking like. Next, coming to the finance managers. Now, they are the people who are looking at a certain high level of KPIs to see how is their business or sub-business P&L is operating, how is it meeting its KPI, because sometimes or broadly, there is a lot of KPIs which are top driven across an organization. So these are the managers who are trying to understand how am I running with respect to what is being set up as my target, and am I doing better, am I doing worse? Then comes your executives who are actually looking at the predictive, basically, kind of analytics. Because for them, what is really important is, okay, I've set my goals. I'm getting the reports and the KPIs on different dashboards as to how am I doing. But what I want to understand is how is my next quarter going to look like for me in terms of financial numbers? Or it could be, let me give you an example. I'll deviate slightly from finance, coming into something which is more closer to heart. Everybody of us flies in planes, right? Now, in an airline industry, a running aircraft engine is a commodity. If an aircraft engine is sitting idle, a plane is sitting idle. So there are two means of an aircraft. One is a body, which is typically done by an Airbus or basically Boeing. And then the Snecma, GE, there's Rolls-Royce, there's Pratt & Whitney, and a different. So for all the aircraft engine manufacturers and for all the airlines, a parked airplane is a loss of revenue. So that means they need to be keeping on flying the aircraft. Now, if I had to look at like about 5 years or 7 years back, we used to do scheduled maintenance in GE for aircraft engines. That means at every, let's say, third month, we would tell an airline that, okay, on 30th of June, we will have your aircraft. We'll need 5 days of doing that maintenance for an engine, repairs and overhaul, and then we'll give you the aircraft engine back. Which means either GE will have to give a replacement engine to the aircraft, which would take a day or two to take down the engine, move it to a service place, fix the new alternate engine to the airline, can use it for next 5 days and basically use it. Now, that was a scheduled maintenance. If you look at now, we don't do that work. We do a predictive maintenance. For the last 30, 40 odd years, we've been collecting data for different airlines, different aircraft engines. Every second that the aircraft engine is flying, there are about onboard on an airplane, there are about 300 different sensors which are sending data back to airlines and GE. We've been able to run those different basically data sets, apply AI and ML on top of it. And what we call as digital twin now through those AI and ML models, whereas there is a real model which is based on engineering, then there is a digital twin, which is a simulated model of that thing and it's running. And by running the digital twin and by applying different machine learnings and algorithms, we are able to predict what is the possibility of a part getting failed. And there are different parameters that come into picture. You're looking at the altitude at which the aircraft is flying, the temperature which was out there at that point in time, the base airport at which the airplane resides. So the magnitude of these parameters, as well as those 300, 400 odd sensors, combining all that and building a digital twin to predict when an aircraft engine can fail. Now, you don't want an aircraft engine to fail while it's flying. That's tragedy, right? So you want to be able to do a right time maintenance, but without causing a loss to the customer. And that's what we have come to a predictive maintenance. We know where the aircraft engine is flying, at which location it is, how much of a life of that part might be there. And looking at all the parameters, GE is now giving predictive alerts to the airlines to say, okay, you're going to be flying this plane for next 14 days. If there is a likelihood of this flight reaching to, let's say, Charles de Gaulle on this date, we can have the right parts readily available while you are basically having a day over, night over replacement, or basically the flight is parked for a night over halt in that airport. We will do the predictive maintenance. Now, what does that helps the customer is, while the aircraft is parked just for an overnight work, we know what all needs to be changed, what all needs to be updated. There is parts already sent to that airplane and the airport. There's an engineering team available. The moment the flight comes in, the aircraft is parked up, the maintenance is done, and then the aircraft is handed over. So instead of doing that work in 5 days, this is the power of machine learning, AI. And above all, if I have to call analytics, and then the offering is a digital transformation, because you're using technology to make the customer experience much better. So as I said, right, when you look at the analyst view, they are looking at raw data. They want to consume it. So from a data analytics perspective, the analytics spectrum is so wide. In a strategical environment, you need to think about whom you're catering, what you're offering, and how you want to basically give that analytics environment to. I'll give another example of predictive analytics. It's again somewhat tied to renewables industry for that matter. And again, going into the predictive analytics, or rather somewhat on a prescriptive, when in renewables energy, basically turbine, which is a wind turbine, which is there, right? Now, GE has a wind turbine which is called Halliday. This is one of the most powerful offshore wind turbine, and it's a 12 megawatt turbine. It typically can basically power roughly about 16,000 homes. Now, to give a perspective about how large this turbine is, the rotor blades, the diameter of that thing is 220 meters. It is installed at a height of roughly about 260 meters high from the seashore level. So it's typically installed, it's an offshore turbine, it's installed somewhere either close to seashores or somewhere a little inside the sea. Now this turbine is a pretty huge turbine. It basically makes 12 megawatts of electricity. Now if you look at this turbine, the wind plays a very big part in turbines, in a wind turbine. Back in 90s and 2000s, and even till a couple of years back, the wind farms used to be having 60, 100, 200 different turbines installed over there. And those are all structured basically, we have to call poles. And then the wind turbines were installed after doing a lot of periodic analysis of what is that wind speed, what is the wind directions in that area. And when the wind turbines used to get installed several years back, they used to be fixed wind turbines. Now, again, since GE has been in this business for quite a bit of time, doing a lot of analysis as we progressed. Now, if I were to give an example of how digitally transformation has helped business in this way, today the wind turbines, when they get installed, they don't get installed on a fixed frame. They have the pole. When the wind turbine, Halliday, when it gets installed, it is right on top of the tower, which can actually, the wind turbine can shift its angle. So now, looking at the historical wind patterns and looking at the weather forecasts, GE can give recommendations to the customers that the weather forecast is going to change, the wind direction is going to change, the wind speed is going to be like this much. There is a good opportunity to basically generate more electricity by shifting the angle by 4 degrees. Now, if the plant is operated completely by customer, they have the system, they have the console, they can go and change the direction of those specific turbines, wind turbines, by that degrees to basically make it that. Or GE can do it from its own command centers to do that. The next part is in wind turbine, you have wind blades, which is installed. As I said, like those, the diameter is roughly 220 meters. Back in old days, the turbines used to be static. The wind blades used to be static. Today, again, those blades can actually shift the angle. And again, looking at the historical data, looking data from meteorological departments, you can again give recommendations for the customer to go and say, okay, if you actually change the angle of the blade, that means the rotation of the blade will become faster and you can generate more electricity. To give an example, once the Halliday runs one full circle, it basically produces 12 megawatts of electricity, which is like typical home uses like 10 kilowatt kind of a thing. A typical village, which having about 3,000, 4,000 homes, that one full circle can run the electricity for one day. So if you give recommendations to the customers using all such data analytics, different scales, you're basically making an experience for customer because, see, GE is not into business of making electricity. It's a power distribution units or basically organizations who basically install these products, and then they basically distribute the electricity. So for them, it's a win because they're able to generate more electricity and produce more power to their consumers. So this is somewhat an example of, if I were to call the prescriptive analytics that we are looking at. So in summary, basically the three aspects of this whole ecosystem that I look at it is the very first thing is data. As I said, you need to have your analytical, your intelligent, operational grade data, which is certified data. Your analytics needs to be covering the spectrum of your lowest end of the customer to your CEOs. And of course, you need to have different capabilities of your analytical models to be able to serve the broad customers. Then, of course, comes the different architecture part of data analytics, which is like, what platform do you select? What kind of architecture do you build? And what are the different outcomes that you're building? Now, in my line of work, basically where I'm part of the organization which is called Finance Data Lake, we work a lot with the finance organizations within the company, and we try to give them the recommendations around, okay, how does things look in terms of finance in a company? Now, I don't know how many of you are from a financials background, but cash flow is one of the biggest things that is in a company. If you cannot predict your cash flow in a right way, you are in a very tight spot, because then you do not know how much of money will you have in the next quarter to run your business. Typically, businesses have been using a very static model of cash flows. They use linearity to understand, okay, I've been generating this much of revenue in past, and we have been like, traditionally, we typically get this much. But looking at the new way of doing things, if you apply machine learning, if you apply basically analytics on top of your different ERP data sets from your finance background also, you can have a daily visibility or a weekly forecast or an operational insights or even an executive operational cockpit. For example, we typically have your purchase procurement systems that would basically fetch in your inventory. Then you have your sales, which is Salesforce and different selling systems. Then you have a receivables data, which is coming into different ERPs. Now, although we say an enterprise resource planning system or an ERP system is a tightly integrated one, in reality, a lot of these modules are not closely knit. It's the general ledger which actually brings them together to a certain extent. And then comes the part of different businesses running ERP. Then your customer payment systems are different because your banking systems are different, how your payment goes are different. So you tying all of those through your analytics and basically saying, okay, this is a digital thread that I'm creating, and I'm building an end-to-end solution which would give me a complete substantiation, as well as now I can start applying some kind of a machine learning model to say, okay, this customer has been giving me due payments, this customer has not been. What is the probability of this customer giving me the payments? So basis of this and the kind of payments that you have to do to your suppliers, or the possibility of negotiating with those suppliers, you build a pipeline and saying, okay, at the end of this month, now combining all of these variables, I am 85% certain that this is how my cash in bank looks like. This is what's my receivable is going to look like. This is what my payables is going to look like. So giving those persona-based decisions, and analyst doesn't care what it is, but your CEO, your CFO, your leader would absolutely want to understand what my cash flow looks like, what my cash position looks like, how much is my cash in bank, because basis of that, he will be able to make a decision as to what much amount he can invest or she can invest into which business. I mean, I'll give you examples. So GE recently had the third quarter earnings update, and two of the businesses I want to name, but they missed their cash numbers by huge margin. Like, one of the business had positive cash of $300 million in bank. Now, as a CEO, it's not the most appropriate thing, or if I have to call, like, he's not in the right spot. Although it's a positive cash flow, it's not a negative one, but still not having a visibility that I may have 300 millions in my bank because of these scenarios, that whole makes a lot of decision making very different. So before the third quarter ended, if you have that information rightly available, that yes, you're going to get not 700 but $1 billion in your bank, you have a capability to go and invest into a business, invest into a product line, get more productivity out of your shop floor. So again, coming to that part in an example, your analytics needs to be driven across your organization in from analyst to your executive persona. I would briefly end on this one from my conversation perspective. But again, as I said, digital transformation, it's not just about implementing your digital solutions, but how you can utilize your existing solutions to transform your business processes, to transform your customer experiences by leveraging data, by implementing smart decision-making systems to make more business profitability as well as enlightened customer. I would stop at that. Back to you, Shyam.
Yeah, thanks a lot, sir. It was really great to know how GE is applying all these analytics across different businesses. And so now I will open the dais for Q&A. So we have collected a few questions from our audiences across YouTube and here as well. So yeah, like we can start with Samyak. Yeah.
Yeah, so hello everyone. This is Samyak, second year student from IIT Mumbai. First of all, must say very insightful session indeed, and got to learn a lot within a short span of couple of hours. So my question was to Shashikiran sir. So the global pandemic led to supply chain and planning disruptions across the globe, and there was a spike in demand for essential products and opposite in the case of non-essentials. So my question was like how organizations were able to incorporate this pandemic correction in the demand planning of SKUs.
Yeah, so I'll probably talk about how well most organizations were able to do it, rather than saying that they all the organizations were able to do a great job. So the main reason is, the root cause is that when the demand changed, supply got constrained as well, right? Just like as you said, the demand of essentials increased and non-essentials reduced. At the same time, the manufacturing of essentials may not have increased in the same proportion, right? That's also because of raw material availability. That's because of logistics constraints and being able to transfer a material from one place to another. So what is it that can be done in a situation like this? The first thing a company would do, good process would do, is to look at how bad is the situation at a granular level across the country or across the region. And you might realize that some places are better served than others. And you might want to rationalize and normalize the performance first. What I mean by that is, if you believe today that Hyderabad is being really served well with essentials because the warehouse is near Vijayawada, which is closer to Hyderabad, but you want to serve and Bangalore is underserved, maybe you will start rationing some stuff that is there in Vijayawada to ensure that Bangalore is equally served, whether good or bad, as compared to Hyderabad, right? So normalization is typically a good business behavior when odds are against you. The second thing you do is to see whether you can redeploy the capacities. Just hidden in your own statement that essentials demand increased and the non-essentials demand came down, perhaps it's time to quickly see how much of the non-essential manufacturing and supply capacity can be redeployed to the essential manufacturing and essentials logistics. It's not possible all the time, but it's also possible many a times that if you have the will to change and be agile, right? That also depends on how agile is your manufacturing setup, how agile is your corporate setup to undertake such initiatives. There are a host of companies which have done it well. Especially if you see the pharma sector, it has done a commendable job in changing how it has addressed this particular issue. Otherwise, there is no chance any vaccination will hit the market anytime soon, right? They've had to do it. It's a question of survival, right? And when it's a matter of survival, companies do what it takes. That's the second thing. And the third thing, and this is perhaps my last point in the interest of time, is that despite doing all this, while you're trying to cater to the demand change that you saw yesterday, the demand is changing today as well. Okay, that's how the situation has been last 8 months. It has kind of stabilized in many places now, but with the second wave of lockdowns that may come soon, we are going to hit that kind of a pattern all over again. So in such situations, there is a concept called out of alignment control, which means you planned for something, you did your best case planning, but then the execution did not meet the plan. So then you do a rapid root causing that this is what I planned last Monday for the last week. But by the time Saturday came, something changed. What changed? And then you try and put those corrective mechanisms in place. Believe me, this is not fanciful artwork. This is a lot of grueling detailing work that requires to be done. It's not purely analytics. It is a lot of process married into analytics. Yeah. So yeah, I'll probably stop there.
Thanks a lot, sir. Yeah, and the next question will be from Akshay Sanap. So Akshay Sanap, you can go ahead.
Thanks a lot for the informative session. So this question we got from the audience, and it is inspired by the movie The Social Dilemma. And this question is to Jaydev sir. So the question is, many professionals in AI are raising questions on the ethical aspect of AI we have seen in Social Dilemma movie. After watching the movie, we feel that the undue advantage is being taken. So what do you think on this aspect, whether it is right or not?
Yeah, so, okay, interesting question. I tend to think about that all the time, and I'm sure others on the panel also do, because we all are data professionals and we know that how data is being used or misused, right? So it's like this, there's an age-old saying, with great power comes great responsibility, right? So all these exponential technologies are very powerful. And it's up to us to use them either for betterment of our lives, right, or make it more miserable, right? And based on how we have evolved as human beings or how our history has been, right? So we have more or less found more useful ways for these things rather than more disruptive ways. The same technologies that G uses, and I can quote Vijay, right, in its medical devices, are preventing so many diseases, are bettering so many lives, right? But at the same time, they can be used for warfare as well, right? So it's up to us. Again, in the longer run, we have found that they are, more useful than they are disruptive. But yeah, the disruptive element will always remain. We have to live with it, right, and manage it.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, sir. And so, in the interest of time, we'll take one more question, one more question from Chandan sir and Atif sir. So Akash Mundra, yeah, you can go ahead now.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today, and it was quite an insightful session. Now the question is for Atif sir. So you have talked about how data and analytics is helping in building customer loyalty and personalization. But my question is from the seller's perspective, that is how sellers are leveraging analytics to sales. Also, how do you see the growth prospects of the e-commerce in tier 2 and tier 3 cities? So what are your insights regarding this that you want to target upon?
So you are muted actually, sir.
Okay, sorry. At the core of e-commerce, I think principally it's supposed to be a marketplace, which means that we bring buyers and sellers on a platform and let a trade happen. Now, sellers are of different scale. There are some sellers which are very big, huge sellers. There are some which are very small. And depending on the nature of the seller, size of the seller, we can provide different analytic insights to them. Like a lot of smaller sellers, all sellers want to understand industry trends. For example, if there is a seller who is selling, say, curtains, they need to understand what price band people are buying, what sort of color, I mean, is it XT cotton, is it a mix of, what are the trends that are happening? So we give them broad-based trends, skimming away the brand and all. I don't want to tell which brand is doing what, but I can give seller versus the industry trends. A lot of, for example, even us, we get it. I mean, there are consulting agencies like Redseer, Forrester and others, which give you insights. Like a Citibank would want to understand how other banks are, how the industry is doing versus Citibank. We do it at a very micro level. So a small seller like say JP Curtains is sitting in say Ludhiana, and they want to understand what is the so one is we give a lot of product sort of trends. The other is we also give them a lot of demand forecasting and sell through recommendations. We get them to know at a very listing level. Brown curtain will sell 20 in this month. White curtain will sell 30. So because they can plan their inventory accordingly. Sell through is an idea where we give them a view of what price band should they be in to maximize their sale. You can either make profit per unit higher, or you can maximize overall profit. There will always be an optimization curve, which will mean as you reduce prices, volumes will increase, but there will be a maxima at which profit will maximize. We'll give them that input. The third way we help them is by better inventory placement. We understand different categories are speed sensitive from a different perspective. So a seller of curtain might not be products with us, but a seller of say another category which is more speed sensitive, say headphones, would require that, because typically you are using headphone now, your headphone is not working, you need it immediately. Within a day or two, unplanned speed sensitive. So, which is as a concept called fulfilled by Flipkart, which essentially means that we will take care of the logistic, inventory placement and others. So we provide sellers a lot of this sense, but they themselves do not understand what is a speed sensitive, what is not, and that is where we help them. So that's on the seller piece. E-commerce is so low that I would expect, and the way I look at it, again, this is my view, not Flipkart or the industry view, is we should expect e-commerce growth across tiers to reflect and mirror the growth that we saw in telecom. From 2004 to about 2017, about for 13 to 15 years, telecom grew at a phenomenal growth rate. E-commerce will mirror that for the next 15 years. Bulk of that growth will again come from tier 2, tier 3, as and when we need. We still need to solve for a lot of things, which is trust. Tier 2, tier 3 still does not trust e-commerce that much. So we need to solve for trust. We need to solve for language. Most of the platforms are still English. And so we need to invest. That is why huge investments have to be made in vernacular. A person in Tamil Nadu wants to see Flipkart in Tamil. Trust, last mile, which is effective delivery, ensuring that it should not be. The customer experience has to be similar across. Only then it will be there. So last mile has to be solved. And the third, most important, is vernacular. Everybody needs to be looking at the app in their language that they understand. So those are the three things that will there. But e-commerce will, in my view, personal opinion, will grow, in fact, even faster than the way telecom grew from 2003 to 2018. Yep.
Yeah, thanks a lot, sir. So maybe analytics might drive the trust among the sellers as we onboard millions and millions of them on e-commerce platforms. So thanks a lot, sir, for your insights. So the next question is by Rajdeep. Yeah. So Rajdeep, you can go ahead now.
Shyam, I will have to drop off. I have a client call at 12:30.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Hello. I have a question from Chandan, sir. It's like India has a young population and its the internet penetration is going. So, how do you see growth prospect for digital only neobanks, like in even tier 3 or even tier 2 cities? Like what POD, like what they can create from the normal traditional banks? Like what the different things they can expect from the digital banks?
Interesting question. I mean, I don't think I'm the most appropriate person to answer this one because I really don't have any banking experience per se. I have an industrial organization experience, but the way I would look at it is, at least from my experience, the digital only banks in tier 2, tier 3 cities. First of all, the very first part I want to go through that, the young population and the good internet population, internet penetration, right? I'm a little middle-aged guy, so I don't know, but the young population doesn't have a tendency of a lot of savings right now. So in the neo banks, and then I'll be very, very candid, this is my personal opinion. People might be saving, they might be not. So this is what I think. So there is not a lot of tendency to do like fixed deposit, recurring deposits, and so on and so forth. It's usually the young folks are advised by their parents as to what they need to do. In that respect, it's like when they're early in their careers, the parents are like, no, you need to save and do things, make it into an FD. They usually transfer it to their parents and then they take care of it. So at least from that perspective, the young population, the tier 2, tier 3 cities, I think what is the most smartest thing is, and I'll give you example of DBS Bank, which is like, I think which is a completely digital run bank, and they've phenomenally grown across the country in the last couple of years, and their entire platform is completely digital. So they have from onboarding to basically creating account creation to sending like a debit card and everything. It's all through online. You don't even need. They literally don't have any branches. So in that respect, a similar setup would be very valuable for tier 2, tier 3 cities, where people may not have access to the person or the branches for such technologically driven banks, but they can offer all of their offerings with respect to either credit card to debit cards to basically account opening to managing funds. As I said, right, I think the one remote cities is the prescriptive analytics, wherein the bank could advise customers basis of their savings profile or how much of the money are they keeping into the bank to either put it into a recurring deposit or a fixed deposit or invest into mutual funds, which the bank should be able to have tie-ups and give people an offering or a return kind of a thing. So today it's either if you have to look at it like that, the whole financial system is just driven in two different ways. One is a pure banking, then one is an investment banking where it's done high net worth individuals are usually focused and given advice by the advisory units. If I were to look at this question, I think that could be a phenomenal opportunity for digital only banks to focus on analytics, machine learning, predictive analytics, and give recommendations for free of cost, because you make it for one, it's available for everyone now. So if you're able to smartly do it, why not offer to your customers to give them the value add across the board without charging them for anything? And young customers are more sensitive to, they want to buy things. But if you're giving them recommendation, giving them an opportunity to do everything from the single platform, I think that's an opportunity which is untapped right now, which can be picked up very, very fast in tier 2, tier 3 cities by giving them opportunity to apply in different mutual funds or stock tradings and giving them the right recommendations to get their money growing. This is my perspective. I'm not really thinking from a banking perspective, but just like what could be an additional offering, which could be a smart thing to do.
Yeah, thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot for the answer. So I'd like to move on to the vote of thanks. So here I would like to introduce Dr. Neeraj Pandey, sir. He is an associate professor in marketing area at NITIE Mumbai. He has published research papers in reputed journals, and contributed chapters in 5 books. He was awarded the Best Teacher Award at NITIE Mumbai and the Young Management Researcher Award by Higher Education Forum, HEF, and many other awards as well. Sir has done consulting assignments for many organizations like Dr. Reddy Laboratories, MRF Limited, Bharat Petroleum Limited, etc. He has also authored 2 books, Intellectual Property Rights, published by PHI Learning in 2014, and Marketing Issues in SMEs, Cases from India, published by Pearson in 2012. Sir is also visiting faculty at AIT Bangkok, SJM SOM IIT Bombay, Ahmedabad, IIM Kozhikode, IIM Raipur. His research interests are pricing, digital marketing, B2B marketing, and services marketing. So thanks a lot, Neeraj sir, for taking out your precious time. We are glad to have you here.
Thank you, Shyam. Thank you, Shyam, for a very generous introduction. So really, it was great, great talk by all the panelists. 2.5 hours, last 2.5 hours, I was just glued to everything. It's such a vast field, and thanks to Professor Debabrata Das for choosing such a great panel, and Professor Hema Datte ma'am, our Dean Student Affairs. So on the behalf of the entire NITIE fraternity, I would like to thank all the panelists, especially Jaideep Dattaji from Deloitte, Jai Pankaj from P&G, Syed Umar Atif from Flipkart, who had to leave because of some other engagement in between, Shashiji from Tredence, and Chandan Vijay from GE. And it's such a huge field, and as we see that analytics is there in every field, be it marketing, finance, as Chandan talked about, banking applications within banking, vast applications within fintech is all about analytics, we can say, at the base of it. So analytics is going to grow much, much bigger. Only I expect is that AI doesn't take over humans. I mean, we also have a role to play. And as Jaidev said, that we are moving towards what is something called as augmented intelligence, where we try to optimize what is the AI power and what is the human power. So that it is a very optimum mix. So once again, I thank you all, and we look forward that we meet in person and we engage much more. And thank you once again. Thank you, and over to you, Shyam. Shyam, you're muted.
So thanks a lot, sir. So in the coming decade, we might see India become a global powerhouse for AI and ML. So we all want to be a part of that entire journey. And thanks a lot, and I want to express my sincere gratitude to Professor Debabrata Das, Professor Hema Datte ma'am, Dean Student Affairs, and Professor Manoj Tiwari sir, Director NITIE, for enabling us to manage these sort of events, and a lot of learnings as well. I also want to thank the student fraternity for their overwhelming support to the event. Thanks a lot. Now, this session will be officially over now. Thanks a lot, sir. And
we don't want to have.
Yes, sir.
Photographs of the panelists.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Like we can have a
Chandan, you don't
group photograph.
Shashi, Chandan, Jaidev, everybody.
Yeah. We'll add, sir. We'll add with Photoshop. Yeah.
Okay, Akash, we are done. So you tell us.
Yeah. I've taken pics. So.
Yes, we are done.
Okay, great.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot,
Professor Pandey. Thanks.
Thank you.